Hello students, this is the revision for chapter 5 from history, that is rulers and buildings. The first topic is engineering skills and constructions. As you can see, between the 8th and 18th century, kings and their officers built two kinds of structures. So which are they? One kind of structure they were building up was forts, palaces, gardens, residences and tombs. Nextly, second kind of building what they were building was constructing was temples, mosques, tanks, wells, then caravansaries and bazaars. Caravansaries means those who are coming in a group to the other places, they are settling down there, taking rest. So the first kind of building is made for a king and for their use, and the second kind of construction work is done for the public. Monument provide an insight into technologies used for construction. So from the monument itself we can understand what kind of technologies and techniques were used while constructing the building. At that time that was not so easy. There were no cranes, and everything has to be done manually. So though they were not having any kind of experiences or they were not learning it from anywhere, then too also they were capable to make a huge monuments, and still they are standing in our country. So it is still we are having that. One of the example I can give away, that Taj Mahal and Qutub Minar, this was the marvelous construction done by the different rulers. So between the 7th and 10th century, more rooms, doors and windows were added to the buildings. Compared to the previous buildings, what they were actually making, there were less rooms, less windows. Uh, but later on, as the technology and technique improved, they input more rooms, doors and as well as windows in the buildings. Even they started building up multi-storied building. Between 8th and 13th centuries, Trapezoid style was used in constructions of temples, mosques and tomb, etc. So what do you mean by Trapezoid style? When roofs, windows and doors were made by placing a horizontal beam of wood stone slab across two vertical columns. This kind of architecture is called as Trapezoid style, or it is also known as corbelled style. So what is that? A stone slab is kept across the two vertical columns, and how what they are keeping the horizontal beam. So this is called as the Trapezoid style. Later on, other two thing also develop, other techniques also you can see over here. Two technological and stylistic development become visible in the 12th century, that is arcuate style and as well as use of limestone. So what do you mean by arcuate style? So this architecture style form in which the weight of superstructure above the door and windows was sometimes carried by the arches was called as arcuate style. So there are two sides. Arches are made and the semicircular stone is kept, and the whole weight is on that semicircle and as well as on the arches. So this kind of style is called as the arcuate style, and as well as they started using the limestone. So before that the mortar was not being used. Mortar over here to just so just the two stone can harden together the concrete, the limestone what is being used. So this cement is increasingly used while construction because of the high quality cement, which when mixed with stone chips hardened into concrete. So this made the construction of large structure easier and as well as faster. Next we are having building temples, mosques and tanks. Places of worship were beautifully constructed as they meant to demonstrate power, wealth, and devotion of the patron. For example, Rajarajeshwara temple by Rajarajadeva for the worship of God Rajarajeshwaram. Even they were acquiring the same title also. Now, by this, whenever they are conquering the other regions or other kingdoms, what they used to do, they used to construct a temple of the god whom the whole population over that particular kingdom believes or have belief. So while constructing the same god's temple, they are also liked by the people of that particular kingdom, as the new king is worshipping their own god. The other reason why they were building up the temple, that is to demonstrate their power and as well as wealth. For that they are patronizing. Then here is the example given as Rajarajeshwara has built the temple. Rajaraja Deva has built the temple of Rajarajeshwara and took the title of Rajarajeshwaram. That is the name of God. So from that he is placing beside the god. He is placing himself beside the god and asking his subjects to just follow the orders whatever he is saying. So he is considering himself as a god. King used to use the names of gods as it was auspicious and they wanted to appear like God, as I said already. The temples were the miniature model of the world ruled by the king and his allies. So this is the only you can say a miniature form. Whatever kingdom extension they have conquered, mainly the kingdom which were being conquered by them, so their world's miniature form was shown in the model of temple, because on the temple's wall everything is being written, like how many kingdoms he has conquered and who has built this temple. Everything, each and every detail was being written over here. So from the temple only we can know more about the kings. One more information things we are having, like coins, then inscriptions, but from the temples also we can know about the king. So this was the trend in south side also, and in many of the temples in the eastern side also. Now, Muslim rulers did not claim to be an incarnation of God but used to be called as the shadow of God. Like Hindu always believe that there is always an avatar. Incarnation means the humans are taking birth. The mainly the God is taking birth as human. So that is the incarnations. So they don't believe in such thing, incarnation. Instead of that, they believe that they are the shadow of God who has sent the God who has sent them to rule the region, or they want to appear like a god. So they are considering themselves as a shadow of God, not the incarnation of God. Kings emphasized their moral right to be ruler and so constructed places of worship to establish a close relationship with the God. So they are emphasizing that they are having a moral right to construct the places of worship, because they are ruling class. So they considered themselves as that they were having the rights, and because, and also the reason they are giving away, because as they are shadow of the God, so they are having a close relationship with God, so they are having the right to construct the worship places. Constructing reservoirs and tanks for water was also highly praised during this time. Rather than constructing the temples, caravanserais, they are also building the reservoirs to save the water, so preserve the water. Next, why were temples destroyed? In the above flowchart only we have read that temples are demonstrating the power, wealth and devotion. So whenever any of the ruler attacks to any of the kingdoms, so they directly attack to what temples, because temple being the symbol of power and wealth were the main target of the invaders. And in the past time they used to keep their treasures, whatever they have looted, in the temple itself, because it is a worship place. So they, in hope of that would not be looted, as uh, they are the gods regions, the gods places, so nobody is going to loot that. But the other rulers who attack the kingdom directly attacks the temples. Here, the Muhammad of Ghazni, one of the example, he has attacked the temples and defeated kings and looted their wealth and as well as idol. Because at that time, idols were also made with the costly metals like gold, silver, and that the bronze, what the high quality bronze that they were using for making the idol, so that was also famous. And these idols were taken away as a trophy by the king who were looting the kingdoms. So Muhammad Ghazni, we already know about him. He has looted Somnath 17 times in Gujarat. That also we have learned. Then temples were destroyed by the king to emerge as a great heroes of their religions. Ghazni destroyed the temple of Somnath. Already I have discussed. Now they also displayed their political might and military success by doing so. So through this, what they are showing by attacking temple or destroying temple, they are showing that they are more powerful politically, and as well as they are showing their military also, means the military power. Next, we are having garden tombs and forts. So they were building up temples, they were building up reservoirs, tanks, wells. Rather than that, they were also constructing garden tombs and forts. So architecture under the Mughals was very complex. Mughal kings like Babur, Humayun, Akbar, Jahangir and Shah Jahan were patrons of literature, art and architecture. So they were developing on these regions, as they were also liking the same thing. Akbar made architectural innovation taking inspiration from the tombs of Central Asia. So what is the tombs? Tombs is a burial of the ruling classes, and on the tomb they are constructing a huge building. Next, Akbar made architectural innovation taking inspiration from tombs of Central Asia, that we have covered up. The central towering dome and the tall gateway, that is Pistaks, become important aspects of Mughal architecture first visible in the Humayun tomb. Later on, you can see all this kind of the tall gateway, that is in Urdu it is known as Pistak. You can see in entrance of Taj Mahal also. So, and even the Taj Mahal's building also, the high semicircular gateway. So first it was being built in Humayun's tomb, you can see over there. Then Shah Jahan fused different elements of Mughal architecturals. So they were not following a one pattern only. They were inspired by the other patterns, designs, and the architectural form, and they just fuse it together. Diwan-i Khas and Diwan-i Am, Charbagh, the Taj Mahal were some of the most accomplished structure built during the reign of the Shah Jahan. So he was also known as the engineer of the building because he has built many of the marvelous building, and one of the example Taj Mahal, one of his greatest work. Region and empire, ideas, tradition began to be adopted by other regions also. Now, as I said, when the new religions come, when the new people come to one particular region, they also learn their food habits, clothing habits, and even the god what they believe. So everything is being adapted by the other people. So here also the people are also adapting, and the same thing, the food habits, the clothing, or the tradition, religion, everything is being adapted by the people who came to the particular area. So here temples in Vrindavan were very similar to the Mughal palaces in the Fatehpur Sikri. So you can see how they have copied or how they have fused the architectural form. And in both the way you can see the architectural structure was being the same architectural structure was being used in each other's building. Different architectural styles like Gothic develop outside of the India. Gothic is the gumbas you can see over the Taj Mahal, the round shaped dome on the top of the Taj Mahal. So that this kind of style was being copied away. The churches use these styles with high pointed arches, stained glass, tall spires, and bell towers that in detail we have learnt in the chapter. Because in past the churches were too small, but later on the churches also become uh, to be constructed very tall. There were tall arches, and at the top arches there was a bell, and even they were using colorful glasses that was being painted with the buttresses, that is small angels. So everything was being used. So many religions, cultures, and architectural style you can see during the period of Mughals, and as well as the other religious people who came to India. Elephant stables at Vijayanagara were influenced by the architectural style of Bijapur and Golconda. So Mughals also has built the elephant stables, and they have seen the same thing in the Vijayanagara, and this was done in the Bijapur and as well as Golconda where the Mughals were ruling away. Fatehpur Sikri had building in architectural style of Gujarat and as well as Malwa. So the style of Gujarat and Malwa was copied in the building of Fatehpur Sikri. So this is all about the rulers and building, why it was being built. Everything we have covered. Here is third chapter's revision work, that is our changing earth from geography. So the first topic is the lithosphere. Broken into lithospheric plates, as you know, the earth surface is having many plates. There are 7 tectonic plates. So they are broken into lithospheric plates that are called as 7 tectonic plates. Plates move due to the movement inside the earth, and this is a very slow movement that cannot be felt by us. And the movement what is going inside of the earth can be divided into two, that is endogenic forces, that is the movement which causes inside the earth, and the exogenic forces that is causing outside of the earth. Now what kind of movement is inside of the earth? That is called as earthquakes, volcanoes, and as well as landslide. Earthquakes also already you know, the vibration or the collision of the tectonic plates, or if the tectonic plates move away uh, from the position to the opposite side, then the earthquake occurs. So from where that it starts, it is called as the epicenter, and at the above that is called as the that is from where it starts, that is called as focus and the point on the earth's surface above the focus is called as the epicenter. So this vibration moves outward from the epicenter and forms the waves. So these waves are known as seismic waves. As far as it moves, its power decreases, and less damage is occurring, but where it is being started, so in the surrounding of that particular region, it is severe, and the huge damage can be caused. It can be measured by the seismograph machine, and the scale is also used to mark the magnitude of the earthquake. So 0 to 9 is the scale, and 6.9 or 7 is considered as the major one. We have also learned the case study in the textbook. Now volcano is the eruption of magma. When it comes out, it is called as lava. From where it is coming out, that is the mouth of the mountain, is known as crater, and the path from where it comes out, it is called as vent. So when it is coming out, it is not only the lava, but it also erupts with gases and as well as ashes. So the starting point, that is called as the magma chamber. So that is given in the diagram itself. You can go through that. And landslides, because of the erosion of the surface of the earth, that is happening landslide mainly because there is no vegetation to hold the uh, earth surface, that is soil. So generally this kind of landslide can occur in the mountainous and hilly regions. Now exogenic forces, that is outside of the earth, that is river, wind, sea waves and as well as glacier. So river is eroding away the landscape. This is called the agents. Wind is also called the agents. Then we are having sea waves, the tides and waves occurring on the sea. That is also one kind of exogenic forces. And the glacier, because of that, valley is formed. Sea waves, if it is huge, then it also creates a tsunami. And wind, if it is stronger, then it can bring away the cyclone, the wind cyclone. And river, if it also flows in a huge form, then it also bring the flood. So this kind of flow is called as the exogenic forces, and that is outside of the earth. Major landforms, that is caused by two types. Why? Here you can see weathering and erosion. So what is weathering? What is the meaning of weathering? Breaking up of the rocks on the earth's surface is called as weathering. Erosion, wearing away of the land. So erosion is mainly caused by what? By the water and as well as wind. There are two agents, but mainly the erosion is caused because of the water, because it carry the mass from one place to another. Other, so wearing away of land, it is called as erosion. Now work of water. So there are rivers, sea waves, ice and wind. River is again divided into waterfall, meander, oxbow lake, floodplains, leaves, delta. All the definition we have covered. You have to go through that definitions. What do you mean by waterfall? Like it falls at a steep angle over a rock and down to a steep valley side and forms a waterfall. Now what do you mean by meander? A meander is a large bend in a flowing watercourse. A meander is formed when the moving water in a river erodes the outer bank and widens its valley. So that is called as meander. Oxbow Lake. An oxbow lake is U-shaped water body. It is formed when a wide meander is cut off from the main stream. The curvy portion when it is cut off from the main stream of the river. So this is also called as cut-off lakes or oxbow lake. Now floodplains. A floodplain is a flat or nearly flat lands adjacent to stream on river that experiences occasional or periodic flooding. So this the mud accumulated on the side, that is very fertile, and many time cultivation is being done on that kind of soil. It is very useful. Next we are having levees. So levees is a natural or artificial slope or a wall that regulate water level. Then next we are having delta. So as the river approaches the sea, its speed slows down and the river divides into number of streams, that is called as distributaries. And again these distributaries reach up to the sea. So they, before merging up with the sea, there is one opening, that is called as delta. So that mouth is called as delta. Sea waves. So how the sea caves are formed under the sea waves. So sea caves are, the littoral cave is type of cave formed primarily by the wave action of the sea. So continuously it is striking of the seaway at the rock develop cracks which become wider, forming hollow-like caves in rocks. These are called as sea caves. Next we are having sea arches. So next we are having sea arches. So how sea arches are formed? A sea arch is a natural arc or bridges made of rocks that has been created through the process of land, wind or water erosion. Next we are having stacks. A stack is a geological landform consisting of a steep and often vertical column or column of a rock in a sea in the sea near a coast. The stacks are formed when a part of headland is eroded by hydraulic action, that is the force of the sea or water crashing against the rock. Sea cliff. The sea water course rising almost vertically above the sea water is called as sea cliff. Next we are having ice or the glacier. So here glacial moraines are formed. So what are glacial moraines? The material carried by the glaciers such as big and small rock, sand and silt gets deposited as the glacier moves on. These deposits forms glacial moraines. Next is the work of wind, mushroom rocks, sand dunes and loess. As we already know that wind is the major agent of erosion, so we are going to learn about the wind. Now what are mushroom rocks? The features that are made by wind. Mushroom rocks, also called rock pedestal, are found in the desert. So these are formed when the winds erode the lower section of the rock more than the upper section, and the rock take the form of mushroom with a narrower base and wider top. So this happens as the lower layer of the rock are softer than the upper layer. So this mushroom like structure, when it is formed because of the erosion, wind erosion, it is called as mushroom rocks. Next we are having sand dunes. So in the desert again, when wind blows, it lifts and transports sand from one place to another. When it stops blowing, the sand particles falls and get deposited in the low hill-like structure called as sand dunes. Next is loess, a recent deposit of silt or material which is usually yellowish or brown in color are consisting of tiny material particles brought by the wind is known as loess. The large deposit of loess is found near the deserts. So this is the three kind of features that is made by the wind. So almost we have covered our chapter, the revision part of third, our changing earth. I will send the answers, the answer key in as in PDF form, so you have to write down. This is the only revision explanation video. Just follow the video, and to write down the answer I will send the PDF. Thank you.